Hey guys, this is kind of an impromptu video. I'm out here on our property just collecting branches, but God is really speaking to me, and I'm collecting all of these branches that have fallen as we've had some pretty big storms lately, and some of them, like if you can see this one, some of them are pretty big. And it's reminding me, and what God is speaking to me about is John 15, where he says that unless we abide in him, that the branches that without him we can do nothing. But if we abide in him, that he will bear fruit in us, and that there's some branches that are fruitful, but that he is going to prune so that they can bear more fruit. And that there's he said that a tree cannot bear fruit unless we're abiding in him. I wish y'all could see our property, because when we first moved here, it was nothing but a bunch of trees. And just so you know, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm putting all of our branches on the wood pile. And so these are some big branches that are getting ready to get burned. And that's exactly what God says is going to happen to the branches that refuse to bear fruit, that refuse to abide in him, because without him we could do nothing. And so when I think about what's happening now, I think about the maybe what God's doing has a lot to do, like, with what he did on what we did on our property. And what we did on our property is, when we first got here, it was completely filled with trees. And many of the trees were so tall, and there were so many trees that they were blocking the sunlight. There were so many, they were all crowded together, and there were so many that were blocking the sunlight that we actually had to come and thin them out, because the ones that were not fruitful, we had to get them cut down because they were actually keeping the sun from hitting the ones that were fruitful. And that was making the trees that were healthy and that wanted to live, it was hindering their growth. And so we had someone come in and just cut them down, so that the trees that wanted to be fruitful could grow and receive the light that they need in order to grow. And what's happened is, every time we have a storm, a lot of the branches that were when we had the trees cut down, some of the branches that were in those old trees were actually being held up by these healthy trees. And whenever we have a storm, those branches are falling because they don't have a support system anymore holding them up. And so what's happening is, those, even if they're very large branches, they're not connected to the root anymore, so they don't have any source holding them up, and so they're falling down, and we're getting some pretty big branches falling on our property every time we have a storm come through. And so as I'm out here just collecting these branches and literally putting them in the burn pile, it's just very sobering to think of that. Perhaps maybe in God's church, that's what he's doing, and he has removed a lot of the trees that are, maybe ministries that were actually blocking a lot of the ministries that were rooted and grounded in life. He's actually cutting a lot of them down, so that those that are grounded can receive the sun, because sometimes we look to things that look like they're fruitful, but they're actually not. They're actually not, because they're not rooted and grounded in Christ. They're not rooted and grounded in love. And they're being held up. And we can even look at their branches, and the branches look like they're big and they're strong, but there's no fruit on those branches. And God alone knows the difference. But sometimes we as people, we can easily be swayed by saying, wow, that branch is so big. Wow, I think I could follow that branch. But we don't even realize that that branch is not rooted, and it's actually hindering us from seeing the ones that are rooted. And so Anyway, if you guys want to learn more about that, you could just look up the scriptures that deal with being rooted and grounded in love, and there's a lot of that in John 15. So where Jesus is just talking about abiding in him. Anyway, I just want to share that with you. I hope y'all have a blessed day today, and I'm going to get back to some yard work. Take care. Bye.